It was a bitterly cold November evening in Westfield Heights, a suburb where every cul-de-sac had identical houses with manicured lawns and mailbox flags painted in HOA-approved beige. My garage door stood half-frozen, refusing to rise past 3 feet, as if the entire steel mechanism had turned brittle in the frost. I muttered under my breath, shoving my shoulder against the icy frame. The motion sensors clicked, the chains groaned, but the door only shuddered in protest. Perfect. Just perfect. My hands burned red against the metal, the chill cutting deeper than I expected. And that's when I saw her. Karen Whitfield, HOA president, queen of clipped hedges and neighborhood gossip, wrapped in a puffer coat 2 sizes too small, holding her phone like a weapon. She stood across the street, glaring at me like I had just spray-painted graffiti across the subdivision sign. "You can't do that," she shouted. Her voice carried over the still air. HOA bylaws clearly prohibit. I sighed. "Karen, it's my garage. I'm just trying to open it." But her eyes narrowed, sharp and accusing. "Suspicious activity. That garage door's been malfunctioning for weeks. Who knows what you're hiding in there?" Before I could answer, she tapped furiously on her phone screen. My stomach tightened. I'd seen this performance before. Karen calling the cops over lawn sprinklers running past curfew, or over a delivery truck that idled too long in front of a neighbor's driveway. But tonight, there was a different kind of edge in her tone. Minutes later, the distant wail of sirens sliced through the quiet neighborhood. Blue and red lights bounced off the frosty windows as 2 squad cars screeched to a halt in front of my driveway. My breath turned heavy in the frigid air. "Sir, step away from the garage," one officer barked as they leapt out, guns drawn. I froze, palms raised instinctively. My garage door groaned again behind me, half open like a wounded jaw. "What the hell is going on?" I stammered. Karen stood triumphantly at the curb, her smug grin catching the strobes of police light. "I told you he was up to something," she declared. "Dangerous. Look inside his garage." The officers exchanged wary glances, their weapons steady. I turned, my own pulse thrumming louder than the sirens. Slowly, the garage door crept upward with a tortured squeal, as if time itself wanted to drag the moment out. And then the breath caught in my throat. Lying inside, slumped against a stack of cardboard boxes, was a man in a black coat. His face pale, his chest still. A bullet hole darkened the front of his shirt. The faint, metallic tang of blood hung in the cold air. I staggered back, disbelief crashing into me. The officers shouted, rushing forward. One gasped, recognizing the man. "Oh my God, that's Governor Harris." Karen's face drained of color. My garage door had finally opened, but the world as I knew it had just collapsed. The entire cul-de-sac transformed into a crime scene within minutes. Squad cars lined the street, their lights painting the rows of suburban houses in frantic red and blue. Neighbors peeked through blinds, whispering into phones, their silhouettes distorted behind curtains. The crisp night air carried the hum of police radios, clipped commands, and the occasional crackle of static. I stood on the frozen driveway, hands trembling, surrounded by a cordon of uniformed officers. My garage, my sanctuary, where I kept boxes of old tools and Christmas decorations, was now taped off in glaring yellow. And inside lay Governor Matthew Harris, the man whose face was plastered across campaign posters just last fall. The officer who had shouted earlier approached me again. His nameplate read Sergeant Callahan. His jaw was clenched, voice sharp but uncertain. "You want to explain how the governor ended up in your garage with a bullet in his chest?" The word barely left my throat. "I have no idea. I came out here to open the door. That's it." Then I pointed toward Karen, who lingered smugly near the squad car as if she'd just been promoted to detective. "She called you." Karen folded her arms, her faux leather gloves squeaking. "I saw suspicious behavior. The HOA relies on me to keep the neighborhood safe. Looks like I was right, doesn't it?" "Shut up, Karen," I snapped, my breath steaming in the cold. "You didn't know what was in there any more than I did." Sergeant Callahan's eyes flicked between us. "All right, enough. Both of you, quiet." He turned toward his radio, muttering into the mic before looking back at me. "You're coming down to the station. We're not leaving a murder suspect standing in the driveway." "Murder suspect?" My voice cracked. "You can't be serious." But the weight of the situation pressed against me, crushing, undeniable. Governor Harris, dead in my garage. guns drawn on me. Karen, the neighbor from hell, who'd finally found her excuse to ruin my life. 2 officers moved in, cuffing my wrists with cold steel. My body shivered, not from the temperature, but from the terror curling inside me. Every motion felt dreamlike, detached, like I'd stepped outside myself and was watching some stranger get hauled away. As they led me toward the cruiser, Karen leaned in, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. Told you that garage would be your downfall. Her perfume, cheap lavender, curled in the air, sickening. The door slammed behind me. I sat in the back of the squad car, wrists aching against the cuffs, eyes fixed on my house. I thought about the quiet mornings spent drinking coffee in the kitchen, the summer evenings grilling on the patio, the ordinary rhythm of a life that now seemed permanently shattered. The radio squawked again. Static, then a chilling announcement from dispatch. Be advised. Possible connection to shooting at Governor's Mansion earlier tonight. Suspects may be linked. Exercise extreme caution. The officers in the front seat exchanged a look. One muttered, "This goes deeper than we thought." And for the first time, I realized something horrifying. Maybe I wasn't just a victim of Karen's crusade. Maybe I had been set up. The police station felt colder than the night outside. Concrete walls, humming fluorescents, and the smell of burnt coffee formed the backdrop as I sat handcuffed to a metal table in a small, windowless room. A single camera blinked red in the corner. Sergeant Callahan sat across from me, his eyes heavy with suspicion. A folder thick with papers rested on the table, untouched, like a silent threat. "Start talking," he said, his tone clipped. "Why was Governor Harris in your garage? Who put him there? And why the hell does your garage door look like it's been forced open from the outside?" "I don't know," I said, my throat dry. "I told you. I was trying to get it open. That's when Karen called you. I didn't even know he was there." "Convenient," Callahan muttered, flipping through the folder. "Problem is, neighbor testimony says you've been spending a lot of time in that garage at odd hours. Lights on late, tools running, and now the governor shows up in there full of lead. Doesn't look good." "That's insane," I shot back. "I was building a damn workbench. Ask anyone who's heard the sawing. That's all." Before Callahan could respond, the door swung open. A man in a dark suit entered, crisp haircut, badge clipped to his belt. He carried authority in the way he walked, controlled, deliberate. "Agent Miller, FBI," he said, flashing credentials. "This case just went federal." My stomach dropped. Callahan stood, stiffening. "On what grounds?" "The governor's death isn't a local homicide," Miller said flatly. "We have reason to believe this ties to an assassination attempt that began hours ago at the governor's mansion. Whoever left him in that garage wanted him to be found." His gaze landed on me. "Question is, why there? Why you?" I felt sweat bead on my forehead despite the chill. "I have no idea. I don't even know him personally." Miller leaned closer, his voice low but sharp. "That's what scares me. Because if you were chosen at random, that means someone wanted to frame you. And that someone has pull. Governor Harris had enemies, inside the State House, outside, maybe even across the country. But planting him in your garage? That's bold. That's personal." My mind spun. Karen. She'd been watching me for months, documenting every tiny infraction, every supposed HOA violation. Could she have? No. She was petty, but she wasn't a political hitwoman. Unless she was working for someone bigger. Before I could piece the thought together, chaos erupted in the station. Shouts echoed down the hall. The crack of gunfire followed. Officers scrambled, radios blaring. Shots fired. Shots fired inside the building. The door burst open again. A younger cop staggered in, blood on his sleeve. "We're under attack. Someone's here for the suspect." His eyes darted to me. Agent Miller drew his weapon, snapping orders. "Stay down. They're not leaving him alive." Bullets ripped through the glass panel on the door. I hit the floor, the cuffs biting into my wrists as the room filled with deafening gunfire. Sparks flew from the table, plaster rained from the ceiling. And in that moment, trapped between cops, feds, and unseen gunmen, I understood the brutal truth. I wasn't just a suspect. I was the target. The gunfire raged like a thunderstorm. Muffled shouts echoed through the station corridors, boots hammering against linoleum, radios squawking for backup. I lay flat on the cold floor, wrists shackled, heart racing so fast it felt like it might burst. Agent Miller crouched beside me, his pistol steady on the shattered doorway. His jaw clenched tight, voice sharp. They're not here for the cops. They're here for you. Bullets struck the wall behind him, spraying drywall dust across the room. Callahan dragged the wounded officer deeper inside, blood smearing across the floor. "We're sitting ducks," he shouted. Miller's gaze cut to me. "We don't have time. You want to live? You tell me. Who knew enough about you, your habits, to put Harris in your garage?" The answer slammed into me like a fist. "Karen," I whispered. Miller's eyes narrowed. "The HOA president. She watches everything. She knew my garage door was busted, that I'd try to open it tonight. She called the cops at the exact moment. She set me up." Miller's face hardened. "Then she's not just a busybody. She's working for someone." Before I could answer, a concussion grenade rolled through the doorway. Miller cursed, grabbing me by the collar, yanking me under the table just as the blast shook the room, ears ringing with white noise. When my vision cleared, masked gunmen poured into the station lobby, black-clad, moving with military precision. This wasn't random. This was orchestrated. "Move," Miller barked, dragging me to my feet. Callahan, pale and furious, snapped my cuffs open with a key. The relief in my wrists was immediate, but it didn't matter. The station was collapsing into war. We bolted through a side corridor, Miller firing controlled bursts behind us. The exit door loomed at the end of the hallway. Freedom. Or maybe just another trap. We burst into the frigid night. Sirens howled across the city, choppers beating the air overhead. Black SUVs screeched into the parking lot. Lights off, windows tinted. The gunmen regrouped, firing at anything that moved. Miller shoved me toward a squad car. "Get in." I hesitated. "What about?" "Get in the damn car." I dove inside as he slid behind the wheel. Tires screeched, the cruiser fishtailing out of the lot as bullets punched through the rear windshield. I ducked low, heart pounding, watching the chaos shrink in the side mirror. For a long stretch of highway, silence filled the car, except for the engine's roar and my ragged breathing. Finally, Miller spoke, his voice calm but edged with steel. "Listen to me. You were a pawn in something much bigger. Harris was already dead when he was dumped in your garage. Whoever did this wanted to stir chaos, pin it on an average Joe, and watch the system eat itself alive." He glanced at me. "That neighbor of yours? Karen Whitfield? She's not HOA. She's deep cover. And she just lit the match on something we may not be able to stop." My chest tightened, the weight of his words pressing down. "So what happens to me?" Miller stared at the road, expression unreadable. "That depends. You want to disappear and pretend none of this ever happened? Or do you want to help us take her down?" The question lingered in the car, heavier than the night itself. My life had been suburban routine just hours ago. Now, it balanced on a knife's edge, between survival and revenge. I clenched my fists, the echo of Karen's smug whispers still poisoning my ears. "That garage will be your downfall." "No," I said, my voice steady. "Not my downfall. Hers." Miller gave a tight nod. The city lights rose ahead of us, jagged against the horizon, full of danger and promise. The war had just begun.